Hi, this is Jurgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. Today, I want to share some reflections on the relationship between diet, what you eat, nutrition, and your psychological or mental health. So, this was inspired by I saw a client this morning who, when I met him about 5 weeks ago on Skype, he complained about fatigue, a lot of fatigue, and a lot of brain fog, lack of mental clarity, and some issues with memory. And he works in the same profession as I do, so he was wondering whether there might be some unconscious resistance or work to be done there. But I got curious based upon what he had described because I've seen this before, and I asked him, how do you eat? Tell me a little bit about your nutrition. And his nutrition was a disaster. Way too much sugar. A lot of sugar, a lot of carbohydrates, which means elevated insulin levels, a lot of inflammation, a lot of cortisol. And so I said to him, look, I have a suggestion that you for 30 days just eliminate all sugar. Now that's virtually impossible because so many things are, added sugar too. But it's no sweets, no chocolate, no ice cream, don't eat fruits, no grains, no bread, no pasta, no rice. Eat a high fat diet, um, no sugar, and let's meet in a month and see what happens. And I met him today, and I'm happy to report that the brain fog is gone. The memory issues is gone. The lack of clarity. He has way more energy in his body, and I'm not surprised by this. I've seen this many times in the past. So I have seen remarkable shifts for some people when they change their diets. For things like depression, um, anxiety, irritability, mood swings, brain fog, memory issues, fatigue, and chronic pain. I've seen dramatic shifts in all of these things by for some people some of the time by changing their diet. And I mention this because I think that sometimes, especially for those of us who have a very psychological orientation to things, it can be easy to kind of miss the obvious cues sometimes and ask, well, how do you eat? Do you get sunlight? Do you prioritize sleep? I remember one guy who called me many years ago who wanted some techniques to deal with irritability and fatigue. He worked 90-hour weeks and slept on average 4 hours per night. I said to him, look, there's no technique I could give you that wouldn't be like swimming upstream. Like if you treat your physiology and your body that way, it's it's very hard to be in balance. So when I see clients, I also inquire into things like their sleep, and sometimes we'll work specifically on that. I look a little bit into like, are they getting movement? So for example, for people who depress, are they getting sunlight? A dose of vitamin D. With people who also depress, are sometimes these are blood sugar swings, that kind of move all over the place. Sometimes, if you can help them stabilize their blood sugar, it really makes a difference. Now, I'm going to catch quite a bit of flack about this, and I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not in the lab. Uh, I usually don't give people dietary advice. It's not really my domain. But where I have seen the most radical shifts in people when they have done nutritional shifts is for people to pretty much eliminate sugar. That seems to be the biggie. And I've seen very positive changes for people who do high fat diets, where they eat a lot of meat, a lot of butter and cheese and these sorts of things. That's worked remarkably well for me as well. These last 3.5 months, I've been on a ketogenic way of eating, very high fat, very low carb, virtually no sugar, and I feel fantastic. My weight's in a great place. I have good energy levels, no brain fog, a lot of clarity, no issues with my stomach. When I eat like that, it makes a tremendous difference. I don't really work with weight loss, but I've had on occasion people who I've worked with for smoking who have said, "Do you do anything for weight loss?" And way more often than not, I have just recommended them a book. And this doesn't, for the most part, resonate that much with women, but the guys love it. It's a book by a guy called Sten Sture Skaldeman. He's Swedish, Skaldeman. You can find it on Amazon. It's called Losing Weight by Eating. He was a journalist who used to follow the dietary advice in Sweden of eating a lot of carbs and bread and potatoes and stuff like that, and to not eat that much meat. And he got really, really fat. He was like 170 something centimeters and 145 kilograms. So he changed his diet by eating bacon and butter and cheese and rib and steak and all this juicy stuff, and he lost 65 kilograms. His heart condition, went away. His pre-diabetes went away. This is over 20 years ago. He's in his 80s and he's still in wonderful health. So by recommending that book, I've had several clients who have done good weight loss issues and dramatically improved their health just by doing that. I know there's going to be vegans and vegetarians and plant eaters who are going to be on my case for saying this and claim that I'm not being scientific. I do think, by the way, that there's a lot of science to support this. If you want to take a look at the science, I highly recommend a guy called Gary Taubes. I've read his books. Taubes, Taubes. He has an excellent book called The Case for Keto. He has one called The Case Against Sugar. He has one called Good Calories, Bad Calories. Really good books. Goes heavily into the science around this. There's also another great medical doctor whose name is Annette Bosworth, who has written a couple of books, which I think are really good. There's one called the Carnivore Code that I really enjoyed, which is about a meat-only diet and all the benefits from that. You might Google Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. Both him and his daughter. His daughter had a remarkable remission from rheumatoid arthritis and some various autoimmune disorders by shifting to a meat-only diet. So this is just my personal conviction, but I think we've been lied to for the last 40 years. This campaign that says that red meat is bad and that we should eat mostly plants and that we should eat a lot of bread and a lot of grains and a lot of carbohydrates and that fat is bad. I highly suspect that that's probably not the case. And I also do know people who have eaten, plant-based diets who are doing well and thriving. So there's probably a case of individuality in terms of this stuff. um, as well. I should also say this, and that is that I have worked with people who have been overweight, dramatically overweight, who have had uh, nutrition that has been horrible, who've still made dramatic changes in their health and in their physiology without changing their diet at all. So even with the guy I just mentioned who changed his diet, that doesn't necessarily mean that we couldn't have gotten there through a more psychological route. You never know these things. But if you see clients for a living, I highly recommend that you have some common sense and look at these factors like sleep and nutrition, and if people get sunlight, and are they socializing, are they moving their bodies. Um, yes, you can help people make dramatic changes often without looking at those things at all. But it can sometimes be a bit like swimming in upstream. So those are my reflections. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them wherever you find the video. Um, if you want to do some change work, know that I see people on Skype from all over the world every day. You can reach me at provocativehypnosis.com if you're looking for mentoring in terms of how to do change work. I'm available for that too. And I'm doing a 2-day seminar on how to work with chronic pain, July 2nd and 3rd in London, hosted by Howard Cooper and rapidchange.works. So check that out if you're interested. Thanks for listening.